Chapter 21 Mutant's Natural Enemy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sentinel Robot. After hearing Benjamin's words, Intelligence Chief Jack was stunned. As the Intelligence Chief of the Los Angeles branch, he knew very well what the use of Sentinel robots meant. At the same time, he also knew how terrifying the Sentinel robots were. Mutant's natural enemy. This is the best description of the Sentinel robot. Are you sure you want to apply to the branch director for permission to use the Sentinel robot? Even if Aiden and Belt are dead, you should still have a lot of people to use. Jack asked Benjamin. I won't let my men die in vain again. I will personally take the Sentinel robot to capture Richard Wesley. Benjamin replied with murderous intent on his face. Although the Los Angeles branch is only one of the many branches of the Mutant Affairs Department, but since the establishment of the Los Angeles branch, the Operations Department has never suffered such heavy casualties. In just a few days, 15 of his mutant agents were killed. This is not only a stain on his personal resume, but also a serious provocation to the Mutant Affairs Department. If he remained indifferent after so many of his men died, then he was too incompetent as the director of the Operations Department. Seeing the strong murderous intent on Benjamin's face, Jack immediately gave up the idea of persuading him and quickly said, Give me an hour, I will come to you with a preliminary investigation report. After that, Jack left Benjamin's office, suburbs of Los Angeles. Sabretooth's safe house. Richard and the other two were enjoying today's lunch. After working in the kitchen for more than half an hour, Clarice cooked today's lunch alone. Richard didn't have high expectations for Clarice's cooking skills. After all, Clarice was only 17 or 18 years old, and her cooking experience could not be rich. But the facts proved that he underestimated Clarice. Clarice's control and development of superpowers were indeed not in depth, but her cooking skills were not ordinary. Not only that, what she prepared for lunch today was actually Chinese food. To be precise, it was an authentic Chinese meal with a very homely flavor. This was the first Chinese meal Richard had after traveling to this world. Although Clarice's cooking skills could not compare with the chefs in the restaurant, he was still very satisfied with the meal. Soon, the 4 dishes and 1 soup prepared by Clarice were completely eaten up. Comfortable Chinese food is indeed more in line with my appetite. Although the original body is an out-and-out American, he who occupies the body of the original body is a Chinese who grew up eating the food of the flower-growing family. Compared with American food such as steak, bacon, fried eggs, hot dogs, and sandwiches, he likes and recognizes Chinese food more. In his opinion, American food can only be used to fill the stomach. Only Chinese food can bring you the experience of enjoying food. After eating and drinking, Richard found an excuse and flashed away from the apartment, a forest outside the suburbs. After flashing into the forest and confirming that there were no other people around, he took out the authentic knife from the system space. Tonight we will attack the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. Before that, he planned to practice the dimension slash that the system had just rewarded. He held the handle of the authentic sword with his left hand, and after a casual dance of the sword, he immediately performed the dimension slash. The authentic sword was swung out with lightning, and a spherical area with a diameter of nearly 2 meters appeared dozens of meters away, as if the space was distorted and mixed with some black shadows. At the same time, 7 or 8 crescent-shaped sword energy appeared out of thin air and instantly passed through the spherical area. Although Richard did not lock on any target now, he just performed the dimension slash dozens of meters away, but after seeing the crescent-shaped slash of the dimension slash, he knew that the slash of the dimension slash was stronger than the level 2-8 sword's flash. Dimension slash proficiency +1. The voice of the system sounded in Richard's mind. He ignored the voice of the system and directly opened the attribute panel to take a look at the magic power. 2 points of magic power once. At this time, dimension slash was only level 1, but the consumption of dimension slash was twice that of level 1-8 sword's flash and earth shaking. Although the system did not explain why dimension slash consumed twice as much as other skills for all level 1 skills, but Richard soon had a guess. Yama Blade. Dimension slash is the exclusive move of Yama Blade. If he was using Yama Blade to perform dimension slash now, the consumption of dimension slash would be the same as level 1-8 sword's flash, earth shaking, IAI slash and other skills, all of which only required 1 point of magic power, but unfortunately, he did not have Yama Blade now. To make up for this, he could only consume more magic power to perform dimension slash. after closing the attribute panel and adapting to the locking and releasing of dimension slash in the forest, Richard performed flash and returned to Saber-Tooth Tiger's apartment. Time flies. Unknowingly, the time came to 8 o'clock in the evening. After eating dinner in the apartment, Clarice created a space door to leave the apartment. Just like in the morning, Clarice set the exit of the space gate on the rooftop of a building a few hundred meters away from the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. Compared with the morning, the office building of the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department is not much different. If there is any difference, it is that there are fewer staff inside. After taking a look at the office building of the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department, Richard asked Saber-Tooth, "Have you inquired about the situation inside in advance?" "Of course. Don't worry about the floors on the ground, they are all ordinary office spaces. The laboratories and cells for holding criminals are all underground. There should be 3 floors underground. The first floor is an ordinary laboratory, and the second floor is our target tonight. If my clones and your father had not been transferred, they would be on the second floor underground now." Saber-Tooth replied immediately. "What about the third floor underground? What's there?" Richard continued to ask. "I don't know. My informant told me that even in the Los Angeles branch, only a small number of people have permission to enter the third floor underground. Although my informant doesn't know what's on the third floor underground, he suggested that I'd better not go to the third floor underground, because there might be some very scary things there. Although Saber-Tooth Tiger is not a good person in the secular sense, he has lived for almost 200 years anyway. There may not be many people who can be considered his friends, but he definitely knows a lot of people from all walks of life. The second underground floor, right? No problem, let's go." After saying that, Richard took out a more than 2-meter-long genuine knife from the system space. Seeing him take out the genuine knife, Clarice immediately raised her right hand and prepared to throw out the purple space energy to create a space door. She originally wanted to create a space door directly to the second underground floor of the Los Angeles branch, but before she threw out the space energy in her hand, Richard said to her, "You don't need to create a space door to the second underground floor. Just open the space door in front of the main door of the office building." "I don't like to sneak in. I like to go in directly from the main door." Chapter 22 Body of Steel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Break in through the main gate. After hearing his words, Clarice and Saber-Tooth were stunned. They knew that Richard was very strong and could kill more than 10 mutant agents by himself, but they didn't know that Richard had such a crazy side. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Saber-Tooth asked with a frown. "What's the uncertainty? Anyway, we have to offend the Mutant Affairs Department, so let's do it more straightforwardly. It will be much more convenient to sneak in, but it will be a little less imposing. It's more domineering to break in through the main gate," Richard said seriously. Saber-Tooth and Clarice didn't know the existence of the system, and they didn't know that he had to kill 12 mutant agents to complete the task and get the Phantom Sword rewarded by the system. It's indeed domineering to break in through the main gate, but you should also know that this will make our operation tonight more difficult. I don't think that we can deal with everyone in the Los Angeles branch with just the 2 of us. Saber-Tooth continued, although he has bone claws and a super self-healing ability far beyond that of ordinary people, he is also very clear about his weaknesses. Ordinary guns can't kill him, but his self-healing also takes time. If the head or heart is hit by a bullet, the self-healing time will be greatly extended. How about this? I will break in from the main door, and you use the space door made by Clarice to go directly to the second underground floor, and we will act separately. Seeing that Saber-Tooth Tiger did not particularly approve of his plan, Richard gave a new plan. Although it was not a good idea to act separately, Saber-Tooth Tiger still agreed with Richard's new plan. No matter how you look at it, acting separately is better than 2 people breaking in from the main door. Saber-Tooth Tiger did not say anything else, and began to let Clarice make a space door to the second underground floor. Soon, Clarice made the space door. As soon as the space door was formed, Saber-Tooth Tiger walked in. At the same time, Richard performed a flash and came directly from the top of the building to the front door of the Los Angeles branch office building. Without any hesitation, he raised his right hand and pointed his palm at the metal door in front of him. Bounce. The air in front of him was compressed rapidly under the effect of super power bounce, and then flew towards the metal door at high speed like an air cannon. Boom! The compressed air hit the metal door heavily. The huge impact force directly lifted the metal door, causing it to fly several meters away and hit the ground with a clang. After using the bounce ability that originally belonged to Anissa to blow the metal door away, Richard walked in with the authentic sword with a calm face, residual heart. After seeing the guards in the gate guard hall raise their pistols and point the guns at him, he raised the authentic sword and waved it casually. As the authentic sword fell, 6 or 7 crescent-shaped sword chi with purple outer and white inner flew towards these guards. Shichikichichichichi. Before these guards had time to shoot, the crescent-shaped sword chi passed through their bodies and split them in two, with the constant reminder of proficiency. Richard's control over Zanshin became more and more handy. Even the crescent-shaped sword energy created by Zanshin, he can now control it to a certain extent, instead of being unable to change the attack trajectory of the crescent-shaped sword energy after it was launched like before. After killing these guards, Richard did not immediately enter the office building of the Los Angeles branch, but stopped in the square in front of the building. Although the authentic sword can cut reinforced concrete buildings like watermelons with the blessing of magic, but using the authentic sword in a closed room is still not as good as using it in an open area. In addition, he did not plan to enter the office building immediately for another purpose, that is to help the saber-toothed tiger share the pressure. With him attracting attention in the square in front of the building, the saber-toothed tiger that has already sneaked into the second underground floor will be much easier. In terms of combat experience, he is far from being able to compare with the saber-toothed tiger. But in terms of strength, 10 saber-toothed tigers are not his opponents. As he guessed, a large group of fully armed guards quickly rushed out of the office building. Although he hadn't seen the special forces and mutant agents yet, he didn't intend to let these guards go. As long as they were enemies, kill them. After these guards rushed out of the office building, he immediately used flash and started a one-sided massacre with unequal numbers and strengths. Chi 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 chi. After an afternoon of recovery, his magic power had completely recovered, but at this time, he didn't use skills such as 8 swords flash and earth shaking, but waved the authentic sword and attacked these guards with ordinary slashes. Although it was an ordinary slash that didn't consume magic power, it was enough to kill these guards. As the authentic sword continued to swing, he harvested the lives of these guards like the death god of hell. In less than 10 seconds, the first batch of guards who rushed out of the office building were slaughtered by him. Broken limbs and arms were scattered all over the ground, and the strong smell of blood was blown around by the night wind. The urgent alarm sounded throughout the building, making the originally quiet building extremely lively. At the same time, the scene of Richard frantically killing guards in front of the main entrance of the building was also captured by the surveillance camera, and it appeared clearly in the sight of Benjamin, Jack and others. Richard Wesley. After seeing that the person who frantically killed the guards was Richard, Benjamin immediately showed an uncontrollable strong killing intention. Then, he decisively picked up the phone and dialed an internal number. "I am Benjamin Kem, start the Sentinel robot immediately." After saying that, he hung up the phone without waiting for the person on the other end of the phone to speak, and left the office without looking back. He thought it was some blind illegal mutant who came to the branch building to show off. Unexpectedly, the person who came was Richard, who killed 15 of his men. Although he did not witness the scene when Aiden and others were killed, he knew that this was all Richard's masterpiece. Aiden and Belt had reported the news of Sabretooth and Clarice being captured in advance. Not only that, they also reported the plan to use Sabretooth and Clarice to coerce Richard. After leaving the office, Benjamin did not return to the operations department, but went directly to the end of the corridor outside the office. Bang! He raised his right fist, smashed the window glass at the end of the corridor with one punch, and jumped directly from the window. His office is located on the 4th floor of the office building. For ordinary people, jumping directly from the 4th floor is not a good idea, but for Benjamin, who is a level 4, or alpha level mutant, this is not a problem at all. After landing on the grass outside the window, he immediately used his superpowers without any hesitation. Man of Steel. With the use of superpowers, Benjamin's black skin immediately showed a metallic luster like steel. At the same time, his strength, endurance, physique, etc. have been qualitatively improved. He only has the superpower of Man of Steel, but this still allows him to sit firmly in the position of head of the operations department of the Los Angeles branch. After using the Man of Steel, he immediately ran towards the main entrance of the building. Chapter 23 Sentinel Robot appears. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, Benjamin ran to the front door of the office building and saw Richard, who was killing a new batch of guards. Without any hesitation, he ran towards Richard like a mad rhino. Although he had never seen Benjamin before, Richard immediately recognized that he was not an ordinary mutant agent. Compared with Aiden and others, Benjamin was much stronger in terms of momentum and oppression. In addition, Benjamin's steel body gave him a sense of crisis that he had never felt before, to be precise. It was a slight sense of crisis, although it was not a particularly strong sense of crisis, and it was unknown how strong Benjamin's steel body was. One thing was certain, that is, Benjamin was more difficult to deal with than Aiden and others combined. His judgment was not wrong. Benjamin was indeed more difficult to deal with than Aiden and others combined. Otherwise, Benjamin, who only had the superpower of the steel body, would never be able to hold the position of the head of the operations department, let alone make the unruly Anissa and Aiden and others obey his command. After just 2 or 3 seconds, Benjamin ran to Richard, and his right fist with a metallic luster hit his head like a cannonball. Just looking at Benjamin's punching speed, Richard knew that if he was hit in the head by this punch, he would definitely feel his head exploded completely, but even so, he still did not use the flash to leave, but also swung his right fist, attack against attack, fist against fist. Although he did not have a steel body like Benjamin, he also had super strength and super physique far beyond ordinary people, and his super strength and super physique were strengthened several times. Bang! Richard and Benjamin's right fists collided heavily, and a dull collision sound like a war drum broke out. Not only that, the moment the fists collided, a shock wave-like air wave was immediately generated. The air wave visible to the naked eye swept around at an astonishing speed, blowing away the nearby guards like a hurricane. The glass door and nearby windows of the building also shattered under the double impact of sound waves and air waves, and large and small fragments flew around like raindrops. What a strong power! Neither Richard nor Benjamin thought that the other party had the same power as themselves, and they felt the same emotion in their hearts, especially Benjamin. After discovering that Richard's power was not weaker than his, he began to understand why Anissa and Aiden couldn't take down Richard. Through the examination of Aiden and others' bodies, the investigators of the intelligence department found that Aiden and others were not all killed by Richard with the authentic knife. In addition to the agents whose necks were cut off and their bodies were split in two by the authentic knife, there were also many mutant agents who were killed by lightning and freezing. Although it is not known how many superpowers Richard has, Benjamin knows 6 so far: summoning a long sword, flashing, bouncing, lightning, freezing, super strength. Although the number of superpowers does not equal the strength, a mutant with many superpowers will definitely not be too bad. After finding that Richard was more difficult than he thought, the furious Benjamin gradually calmed down, put on a standard boxing stance, and attacked again. Before joining the Mutant Affairs Department, Benjamin was a well-known professional boxer. Although he has never won a gold belt, he is still an undoubted professional boxer. In a boxing match, he was about to lose the game and suddenly awakened the superpower steel body. Then, in front of the live audience and the live broadcast audience, he threw an uppercut that ordinary people could never bear, and smashed the opponent's head with one punch. The bloody scene not only shocked the audience at the scene and the live broadcast, but also scared Benjamin himself. The next thing is very simple: he was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and first-degree reckless homicide, and was sentenced to 120 years in prison. However, he did not stay in prison for long. Less than a month after being imprisoned in the mutant prison, he was bailed out by the Mutant Affairs Department. After 3 months of training, he went from being a felon who committed first-degree intentional homicide and first-degree reckless homicide to an agent of the Mutant Affairs Department. When Benjamin took his habitual boxing stance and attacked again, Richard had no intention of competing with him in fighting skills, and swung the authentic knife in his left hand with lightning, earth-shaking. The fatal and gorgeous four-cut lightning swung out, interrupting Benjamin's attack and constantly slashing across his body. Chi. Benjamin immediately had 4 wounds several tens of centimeters long. What is this? Seeing that Benjamin was not chopped into pieces of different sizes like Anissa and Aiden, Richard did not hesitate and decisively performed Flash, appearing more than 20 meters away. Although he already knew that Benjamin had superpowers that were not inferior to his own, he did not expect that Benjamin's body defense would be so high that he could not be killed even by earth-shaking. If it was the earth-shaking skill before it was upgraded, Richard would not be too surprised if it failed to chop Benjamin into pieces, but the earth-shaking skill he just used was upgraded to level 2, like the upgraded 8 Blades Flash. The power of earth-shaking skill has also been significantly improved. Even if Benjamin's body was really made of steel, he was confident that he could chop Benjamin into pieces. However, now, the level 2 earthquake only left Benjamin with a wound several tens of centimeters long and 1 or 2 centimeters deep. Although the defense was broken, this level of damage was not fatal. Like Richard, Benjamin also showed an expression of surprise on his face. Although the Iron Man gave him power far beyond that of ordinary people, but as the name suggests, the most powerful ability of the Iron Man is not super strength, but the amazing defense that is stronger than steel. This is the first time he was injured after awakening the Iron Man. Just as Richard and Benjamin looked at each other with vigilance, the ground suddenly shook slightly. Along with the vibration, a circular entrance and exit leading directly to the third underground floor appeared in the square in front of the office building. A few seconds later, 3 nearly 4-meter-tall robots, all black, with yellow light shining on their chests and eyes, and their bodies seemed to have scales, appeared in Richard's sight. Sentinel robots. Although it was the first time he saw it with his own eyes, Richard recognized the 3 tall black robots as Sentinel robots that were specially used to hunt mutants. In the movie Days of Future Past, there were only 2 versions of Sentinel robots. One was a prototype that appeared in 1973, had the ability to fly, was made of space polymer, and mainly used the Gatling gun on the right hand to attack the target. As for the second version, it appeared in the future, using the transformation principle of Mystique to make it, and could copy mutant abilities at will and share them with other Sentinels. It was a future Sentinel with advanced intelligence and joint combat capabilities. What appeared in Richard's sight now was neither the prototype in 1973 nor the future Sentinel that completely exterminated mutants, but the third generation of Sentinels belonging to the current era. Is this the trump card of the Mutant Affairs Department? After seeing these 3 Sentinel robots, Richard knew that tonight's battle would not end so easily. Chapter 24 System Crash. You are listening at MTnovel.audio. Although he didn't know what abilities the 3 Sentinel robots had, Richard was not particularly surprised to see the Sentinel robots. After digesting the memories of the original body, he knew that the Mutant Affairs Department had successfully developed the Sentinel robots. Not only that, the original body also knew that the Sentinel robots had impressive strength. As far as the original body knew, the Mutant Affairs Department had sent Sentinel robots to perform many tasks. Among these capture and kill missions, only one mission failed, which was the mission to capture Magneto. As for the other missions, they were all completed with amazing efficiency. Although it is unknown how Magneto did it, it is rumored that Magneto fought against 5 Sentinel robots alone, destroyed all 5 Sentinel robots with his own strength, and was unscathed. After taking a look at the Sentinel robots that appeared, Richard did not use the X-Gene superpower to attack them, but raised his right hand and used Sephiroth's skill Great Thunderbolt. As his right hand was raised, a low thunder sounded in the air immediately. At the same time, silver-white lightning swam in the night sky like a living thunder snake. The strange phenomenon in the night sky immediately attracted the attention of Benjamin and other staff members. Is it the superpower to control lightning? After seeing this scene, Benjamin immediately remembered the investigation report he had just read this afternoon. According to the statistics of the Intelligence Department investigators, 3 people in Aiden's group were killed by powerful lightning. Although the investigation report did not describe in detail how they died, it is clear that this was Richard's work. Neither Sabretooth nor Clarice had the ability to control and release lightning. Compared with ordinary people, the agents of the Mutant Affairs Department are indeed very strong. But most mutant agents are ordinary flesh and blood, not to mention the lightning of the power of heaven. Even a 9mm pistol bullet can take their lives. When the silver-white lightning swam in the night sky like a thunder snake, Richard did not hesitate and waved his right hand gently. As his right hand fell, the silver-white lightning swam in the night sky immediately attacked the sentry robot in the square. Boom! Amid the huge thunder, the silver-white lightning instantly hit the Sentinel robot on the square, and the terrifying electric current roamed wildly on the Sentinel robot. If it was an ordinary robot, after being hit by the silver-white lightning, even if it was not scrapped on the spot, the internal chips and circuit boards would be burned due to the erosion of the high-voltage current. But it is obvious that the Sentinel robot is not an ordinary robot. If the lightning attack can easily destroy the Sentinel robot, then the Sentinel robot cannot become the natural enemy of mutants. The silver-white lightning that is enough to turn ordinary people into charcoal did not destroy the Sentinel robot, but only penetrated the outer armor of the landing area, revealing the structure inside a little. Although the 3 Sentinel robots were not destroyed, Richard was not particularly surprised. The Sentinel robot is the trump card that the Mutant Affairs Department is proud of. Under the gaze of Richard, Benjamin and others, the scale-like armor on the Sentinel robot began to deform strangely. Soon, all the electric snakes wandering on them disappeared, as if they were absorbed. Just when Benjamin and other staff members thought that the Sentry robot was going to attack Richard in the same way, the Sentry robot strangely stopped in place without any movement. What happened? Benjamin looked at the motionless Sentry robot with a look of surprise. If the chest and eyes of the Sentry robot were not still shining, he would have thought that the 3 Sentry robots were down. Benjamin didn't know what happened to the 3 Sentry robots, and the remote monitoring personnel on the 3rd underground floor were also confused. The Sentry robot does not require manual operation, but after several versions of updates, the current Sentry robot can collect data in real time and transmit it back. In addition, the staff in the monitoring room can also understand the status of the Sentry robot at any time, or understand the situation on the scene through the Sentry robot. At this time, on the large screen in the monitoring room, garbled characters that the staff had never seen before appeared. What is this? Is the system faulty? Looking at the garbled characters on the large screen, the staff in the monitoring room showed blank expressions. The data on the screen showed that the Sentry robot was not seriously injured, but only the local armor was damaged. But the Sentinel robots in the square stood still as if their energy was exhausted. Neither Benjamin nor the staff in the monitoring room realized that the lightning attack performed by Richard was not the X-Gene superpower, but a skill performed by magic. Unlike Benjamin and others who had no idea what was happening, Richard quickly guessed the reason after seeing the Sentinel robot standing still. System crash. The internal systems of these Sentinel robots crashed. The Sentinel robots do not have real consciousness and only act according to the set program. After being struck by lightning, they followed the set program and prepared to copy Richard's superpower to deal with Richard. If Richard is now using the X-Gene superpower, there will be no problem with the copying of the Sentinel robots. Not only that, they can also use superpowers copied in advance to deal with Richard. But Richard, who knew early on that they could copy mutant superpowers, did not use the X-Gene superpowers, but used Sephiroth's skills. Although they are both supernatural powers, the skills that Richard uses, magic and the superpowers of mutants, are 2 completely different fields. The 2 have nothing in common except that neither obeys the laws of physics very much. Using the method of copying mutant superpowers to copy Richard's skills is as outrageous as using the Ming Dynasty's Shan Fang sword to kill Qing Dynasty officials, not to mention that these Sentry robots can't do it. Even if Ancient One and Dr. Strange come, they can't copy the skills that Richard uses magic to perform. After all, these skills are products of another world. Even the magic power was formulated by the system to facilitate Richard's understanding of the energy required to release skills. To put it simply, the magic power possessed by Richard and the magic power possessed by other mages are 2 completely different entities. Richard originally just wanted to test the defense of the Sentry robot with the lightning attack of the big thunder and lightning. Unexpectedly, the Sentry robot would actually cause the system to crash because it tried to copy the thunder and lightning. Although this situation was not within his expectation, after seeing this scene, he did not waste this unexpected opportunity. Flash. Without any hesitation, he immediately used Flash to come to one of the Sentry robots. 8 swords flash. 8 lightning slashes were swung out in a smooth motion, and the sharp authentic knife kept slicing across the body of the Sentry robot. Under the gaze of Benjamin and others, the Sentry robot in front of Richard was immediately chopped into large and small pieces of debris, and was completely scrapped before anything could be done. The most difficult thing about Sentinel robots is that they can copy mutant superpowers and use mutant superpowers to deal with mutants. Without the ability to copy or use mutant superpowers, the Sentinel robot's combat effectiveness will plummet. after seeing Richard destroying a sentry robot instantly, Benjamin ran towards Richard without any hesitation. Although he had exploded at his fastest speed, he still failed to stop Richard from continuing to destroy the Sentinel robot. 8 Swords Flash. Richard once again used 8 swords to dodge and destroyed the second sentry robot. Just when he was about to destroy the third sentry robot in one go, Benjamin finally came in front of him and ran towards him like a crazy bison. Flash. Before Benjamin could hit him, Richard used Flash and left. Although he failed to hit Richard, Benjamin successfully prevented him from destroying the third Sentinel robot. In other words, it temporarily prevented him from destroying the third Sentinel robot. Richard, who flashed to more than 20 meters away, ignored Benjamin and focused his eyes on the last sentry robot. Although the sentry robot stayed motionless due to system crash, it did not pose any threat to him, but he still wouldn't give the sentry robot a chance to return to the factory for repairs. After locking his eyes on the sentry robot, he held the authentic sword and waved it casually. Dimensional Slash. Chapter 25 Spatial Properties. You are listening at MTnovel.audio. After seeing Richard standing in the distance and swinging his sword, Benjamin thought Richard was going to release a crescent-shaped energy blade to attack himself and the Sentinel robot, but soon, he found that Richard was not going to release a crescent-shaped energy blade. Standing in front of the Sentinel robot, he suddenly had a strange feeling he had never experienced before, as if the space behind him was suddenly distorted, generating a strong attraction similar to that of a black hole. His feeling was not wrong, the space behind him was indeed distorted, and it generated a strong attraction that had never existed before. However, the person Richard wanted to attack was not him, but the Sentinel robot behind him. With the Sentinel robot as the center, the space of several meters around was strangely distorted, and a black shadow appeared as if the space was torn apart. At the same time, a crescent-shaped sword energy with terrifying cutting ability appeared out of thin air and attacked the Sentinel robot from different angles. Chi. Compared with flesh and blood, the Sentinel robot does have good defense, but in front of Richard's Dimension Slash, the Sentinel robot was as fragile as a cream cake. In just a blink of an eye, the Sentinel robot was chopped into large and small pieces by the crescent-shaped sword energy, and fell to the ground one after another under the action of gravity. After seeing the Dimension Slash easily destroy the Sentinel robot with a system crash, Richard showed a satisfied expression. Among the skills he has mastered now, the Dimension Slash is definitely the skill with the strongest attack power. Even the 8 Swords Flash, which has been upgraded to level 2, is slightly inferior to the Dimension Slash in terms of attack power. Although the 8 Swords Flash does not follow the laws of physics, it is much more normal than the Dimension Slash. The sharp cutting ability of the 8 Swords Flash is mainly due to the enhancement of magic. To put it in a more vivid way, it is like being enchanted with the extreme sharpness attribute, but the Dimension Slash is different. In addition to the enhancement of magic, the Dimension Slash's slash also involves the space field. In other words, it has some space attributes. Although this does not mean that the Dimension Slash can cut off everything in the world, the Dimension Slash's slash can cut off most objects. The Sentinel robot is indeed the trump card of the Mutant Affairs Department, but the Dimension Slash is also Richard's trump card. As trump cards, Richard's trump card is obviously stronger than that of the Mutant Affairs Department. Benjamin did not see how the Dimension Slash destroyed the Sentinel robot, but he heard the sound of the Dimension Slash chopping the Sentinel robot into several pieces and the wreckage of the Sentinel robot falling to the ground. Although he did not know how Richard did it, he immediately had a strong sense of crisis in his heart. In terms of defense, his steel body is much stronger than the Sentinel robot, but this does not mean that his steel body cannot be injured. Richard had just injured him with the earth-moving slash, leaving 4 wounds of dozens of centimeters long on his body. Although these wounds are not fatal, it is enough to show that Richard's attack can break the defense of the steel body. If Richard can only perform attacks that break the defense of the steel body at close range, Benjamin will not care too much, because while Richard is approaching him, he can also attack Richard. But if Richard could perform an attack that broke the defense of the Iron Man without getting close to him, that would be another matter. Benjamin doesn't play games, but he is no stranger to the so-called kite-flying tactics. Trouble. After realizing this, Benjamin's already ugly face became even uglier. Although he was reluctant, he had to admit that if he was alone, he would probably not be able to take down Richard. Not only that, if there were no other mutant agents to help, he would probably die in Richard's hands. After realizing this, he did not hesitate at all, and immediately looked at a surveillance camera in the square and shouted to the surveillance camera. "Notify all agents in the operations department. I don't care where they are now or what they are doing, let them come back as quickly as possible." Although he couldn't see the situation in the monitoring room, Benjamin was sure that the staff in the monitoring room were now paying attention to his and Richard's every move. In other words, after hearing his words, the staff in the monitoring room would contact the mutant agents of the operations department as soon as possible. Richard also heard Benjamin's words, but he did not go over to interrupt Benjamin. As for the reason, it was very simple, because after killing several groups of guards of the Los Angeles branch, he found that the mutant agents of the Los Angeles branch seemed to have gone off work. If the mutant agents of the operations department had not gone off work, after he killed the first group of guards, the mutant agents of the operations department would come out to stop him, and the current situation is that, except for Benjamin, he has not seen any mutant agents. As for whether there are mutant guards on the second and third underground floors, he is not sure now. However, even if there are, those mutant guards are now the target of Sabretooth. Although he did not see other mutant agents, Richard was not particularly surprised by this. In other words, he and Sabretooth decided to attack the Los Angeles branch at night, and they had already considered this situation. The agents of the Mutant Affairs Department are just workers. Although the United States is a capitalist country, the workers in the United States are not as miserable as imagined, let alone, 996 is very rare in the United States. Whether it is the agents of the Mutant Affairs Department or the police in Los Angeles, unless there is an emergency. Otherwise, overtime is rarely seen. To put it simply, it means going to work on time and leaving get off work on time. There are many mutants who don't like the Mutant Affairs Department, but there are not many mutants who dare to attack the Mutant Affairs Department. After all, not all mutants have strong combat power. In addition, most mutants who oppose the Mutant Restriction Act and hate the Mutant Affairs Department dare only express their dissatisfaction verbally or on some trivial matters. Let them take up arms to attack the Mutant Affairs Department. Most mutants do not have this courage. This is also an important reason why the Mutant Restriction Act can be smoothly implemented. Fairness must be achieved with fists. If you don't dare to resist yourself, don't blame others for being aggressive. After Benjamin finished shouting at the surveillance camera, Richard said to him, "Are you the head of the operations department of the Los Angeles branch?" Benjamin did not answer him and took a defensive posture. Seeing that Benjamin did not intend to answer his question, Richard did not intend to waste time with him. Dimension Slash. Without any hesitation, he raised the authentic knife and swung it hard, once again performing the Dimension Slash. After seeing Richard raise the authentic knife, Benjamin did not stay where he was and wait for death. He suddenly exerted force with his legs and shot towards Richard. He reacted quickly and his speed was not slow, but the Dimension Slash released by Richard was not so easy to dodge. If you can avoid the Dimension Slash by leaving your original position, then the weakness of the Dimension Slash is too obvious. Benjamin had just run a few meters when he found himself running into the attack range of the Dimension Slash, and the surrounding space was strangely distorted in a way that science could not explain, and he happened to be in the center of the distorted space. P.S. This is the first round of recommendations. Please read, save, and vote for recommendations. Chapter 26 Killing Feast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How is this possible? Benjamin had an incredible expression on his face. He would never have thought that he would enter the attack area of Dimension Slash unknowingly while trying to avoid the attack of Dimension Slash, just like jumping into the trap set by Richard. Unlike Benjamin, who had an incredible expression on his face, Richard was calm at this time. The Dimension Slash that had been performed could not change its position. But before the Dimension Slash was formed, he could adjust the position of the Dimension Slash at any time. In the words of the game, it was to relock the target. Seeing Richard raise the authentic knife, Benjamin immediately started to act. If he just dodged, Richard might not be able to lock him so easily, but unfortunately, Benjamin actually ran towards him. If Benjamin showed obvious intention to attack, he still couldn't guess where Benjamin would appear next, then he was too slow. When Dimension Slash began to distort space and completely locked Benjamin, Richard was gone. At this point, as long as he didn't cut off the supply of magic power, the Dimension Slash would attack Benjamin from all directions at the same time. As the space twisted, the crescent-shaped sword energy of the Dimension Slash appeared out of thin air and struck Benjamin with lightning. Chi 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 chi. the sound of the crescent-shaped sword energy tearing the body continued to ring. Under Richard's gaze, Benjamin's right arm and legs were cut off at the root, blood splattered everywhere, and the whole person fell to the ground uncontrollably. He didn't die. Seeing that Benjamin was only cut off his right arm and legs by the dimension slash, and was not killed by the dimension slash, Richard frowned slightly. Although Benjamin had resisted the earth shaking once with his body before, the dimension slash was not the earth shaking. In terms of power, the power of the dimension slash is much stronger than the earth shaking. Even if the dimension slash is only level 1 now, the power of the dimension slash is much higher than the earth shaking. Is it an alpha level superpower? Although Benjamin's superpowers have not been plundered yet, after seeing that Benjamin was not killed by the dimension slash, Richard knew that Benjamin's superpowers were most likely alpha-level superpowers. This means that even if he kills Benjamin now, he can't plunder Benjamin's superpowers. Let's save this guy's life first. After thinking about it, Richard decided to save Benjamin's life for the time being. He is not sure whether the beta-level plunder can be upgraded to alpha-level after he kills other mutant agents in the operations department, but if he kills Benjamin now, he still can't plunder Benjamin's superpowers. In this case, it's better to let Benjamin live for a while. Anyway, Benjamin has no ability to resist now. Richard didn't expect Benjamin to be able to withstand the attack of the dimension slash and not die. Benjamin also didn't expect that his proud body of steel would be defeated so easily. The severe pain from the broken right arm and legs made him regret why he didn't call back the agents of the operations department in advance tonight. If he hadn't been so careless and called back the agents of the operations department in advance, he might have avoided the current outcome. Under Benjamin's gaze, Richard flashed in front of him, then, he grabbed his shoulder. Flash. The next second, Richard and Benjamin disappeared at the same time. Although he didn't plan to kill Benjamin immediately, he didn't plan to leave Benjamin in the square. Richard didn't take Benjamin back to the roof of the building where Clarice was, but flashed to the roof of another building. "You're lucky, I have other things to deal with. You can live a little longer," Richard said to Benjamin. "Do you want to save your father? Don't be delusional, your father has been sent away. If I die, I can guarantee that your father will come down to accompany me soon," Benjamin said loudly to Richard. "You'd better save some energy. The more excited you are, the faster you will die." After saying that, Richard raised his right hand, slightly bent his middle finger, and shot it at Benjamin's head. Fly. Bang! The compressed air hit Benjamin's head like a fist, knocking Benjamin, who could no longer maintain his steel body, unconscious. Looking at Benjamin, who was completely unconscious, Richard once again used the flash. He did not flash back to the square in front of the office building, but flashed to the second underground floor of the office building. As soon as he flashed to the second underground floor, he heard fierce gunshots and shouts from afar. In addition, he also saw many bodies of guards in the corridor. These guards were like being bitten by wild beasts, with fatal wounds left by sharp claws. It goes without saying that they were all killed by saber-toothed tigers. Looking at the bodies of the guards, Richard immediately walked towards the direction of the gunshots without any hesitation. Soon, he saw the saber-toothed tiger fighting with the guards, as he expected. The saber-toothed tiger at this time showed the same primitive fighting style as a wild beast, waving its hands and madly attacking the guards in front of it. Although there was only one person and he had no weapons, but with its self-healing ability far beyond that of ordinary people and its primitive fighting style like a beast, the saber-toothed tiger fought against many enemies alone and staged its own killing feast on the second underground floor. Richard did not make any sound, but the saber-toothed tiger still noticed his arrival. With its sharp sense of smell like a beast, he smelled Richard's scent. The saber-toothed tiger immediately turned his head and looked at him. After seeing that he had no intention of attacking the guards, the saber-toothed tiger immediately retracted his gaze and continued his killing feast. Time passed little by little. More than a minute later, relying on its fearlessness and wild fighting style like a beast, the saber-toothed tiger killed all the guards in front of it, leaving the corridor, which was not particularly spacious, full of the bodies of the guards. After killing all the guards, the bloody saber-tooth came to Richard and asked immediately, "Have you dealt with the people above?" "No, I just defeated the director of the operations department. Now it's half-time. The second half will start after the other agents of the operations department come back." Richard replied calmly. "Half-time? Sabretooth frowned slightly, not knowing why Richard did this, and continued, I just caught a few researchers in the laboratory and asked them. Your father has been sent to the mutant prison. I know, the director of the operations department has told me. Where are your clones? I didn't see their bodies. Richard asked Sabretooth. They should be here soon. I smell the disgusting smell of them coming in and out, and they are getting closer and closer. As soon as Sabretooth finished speaking, Richard saw his clones. To be precise, there were 5 younger and more handsome Sabretooths. Chapter 27 Plunder Upgrade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although they are Sabretooth's clones, these 5 clones, both in appearance and in real age, look much younger than Sabretooth. If Sabretooth gives people the impression of a middle-aged uncle in his 40s or 50s, then his clones look like they are only in their early 30s. In addition, compared with Sabretooth, who is untidy and unkempt, these clones have no beards and their hairstyles are all short. In addition, they wear uniform black combat uniforms, giving people the feeling of elite special forces. After seeing these 5 clones of Sabretooth, Richard immediately said, one is for you, and the other 4 are for me. Okay. Sabretooth has no objection to Richard's arrangement. He is indeed not a law-abiding person, but he is not arrogant. Although he has not fought with his clones yet, it is clear that these clones have the same abilities as him. If there is any advantage, it is that his combat experience is much richer than these clones, but when everyone has super self-healing ability, rich combat experience is not a particularly big advantage, unless he has a means that the clones don't have, which can kill with one blow and quickly end the opponent's life. Otherwise, one clone can fight him to a draw, turning the battle into a protracted battle of will. After hearing the answer from the saber-toothed tiger, Richard didn't waste time and raised his hand to use the move of Zanshin. As the authentic knife was swung out, 6 or 7 crescent-shaped sword chi with purple outside and white inside immediately flew towards the clones of the saber-toothed tiger. The 5 clones of the saber-toothed tiger did not stand still to resist the crescent-shaped sword chi of Zanshin, but ran with their limbs like wild beasts, trying to avoid the attack of the crescent-shaped sword chi. If they were in an open field, they would indeed have a good chance of avoiding the incoming crescent-shaped sword chi. But unfortunately, they are not in an open field now, but in a corridor. Although they had tried their best to dodge the crescent-shaped sword energy, and even some mutants began to run on the wall, the crescent-shaped sword energy still accurately hit the 4 clones and passed through their bodies. The clone who was not hit by the crescent-shaped sword energy was not because his dodging skills were better than the other 4 clones, but because Richard deliberately let him go. These were all clones of Saber-Tooth Tiger. If he didn't spare any of them, it would be a bit unreasonable. The sharp crescent-shaped sword energy passed through the bodies of the 4 clones, splitting 2 of them in 2 and cutting them in half. As for the other 2, their hands and feet were cut off by the crescent-shaped sword energy. Although they didn't die immediately, the 4 clones lost their ability to fight. After severely injuring the 4 clones with the residual heart, Richard did not hesitate and directly performed the flash to come in front of them. Then, the authentic knife in his left hand kept swinging, chi 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 chi. The sound of the authentic knife cutting through the flesh and blood kept ringing. In order to get rid of these 4 clones as soon as possible, Richard didn't show any mercy and directly chopped off their heads. In the comics, Wolverine had a plot where his head was chopped off but he didn't die, but Sabretooth is not Wolverine. Although both have super self-healing abilities, Sabretooth's super self-healing ability is not as strong as Wolverine's. This is also the main reason why Stryker chose to transform Wolverine instead of Sabretooth, because Sabretooth's self-healing ability can't withstand the transformation of adamantium alloy. After chopping off the heads of these 4 clones, Richard immediately used the Plunder superpower, preparing to use Plunder to confirm whether the clones whose heads were chopped off were dead. New abilities: Bone Claws, Super Self-Healing, Beast Instinct. Obtain the same type of abilities, Ability Fusion. Bone Claws, Super Self-Healing, Beast Instinct are enhanced. Super Self-Healing level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Plunder level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Plunder has also been upgraded. After seeing that both Super Self-Healing and Plundering were upgraded to Alpha level, Richard smiled with satisfaction. he was not surprised that super self-healing was upgraded to alpha level. Before killing Sabretooth's 4 clones, super self-healing had been strengthened several times. Now that he had plundered 4 beta-level super self-healing at one time, it would be a bit unreasonable if it could not be strengthened and upgraded to alpha level. However, he did not expect that after super self-healing was upgraded to alpha level, plundering was also upgraded to alpha level. Although it was a bit unexpected, he was very satisfied with the result, because it meant that he could go back to plunder Benjamin's superpowers now. Sabretooth knew that Richard was stronger than himself, but he did not expect that Richard could kill his 4 clones in just a few seconds. Could this guy be the legendary Omega-level mutant? This thought flashed through Sabretooth's mind unconsciously. Although the concept of Omega-level mutants has been proposed for a long time, he has never heard of any mutant who has grown to the Omega level. Even Phoenix, who is regarded by the outside world as Professor X's successor, is only at the Alpha level. Professor X and Magneto both know that Phoenix has an extremely powerful power hidden in her body, but they both think that Phoenix is not yet Omega level. As for the reason, it's very simple, because Phoenix Girl can't control the powerful power hidden in her body well now. You can deal with the remaining ones slowly, I'll go upstairs to deal with the others. After saying that, Richard used Flash to leave without waiting for Sabretooth to answer. The rooftop where Benjamin was, looking at Benjamin who was still in a coma, Richard raised the authentic knife in his hand and swung it casually, completely ending Benjamin's life. Plunder new ability Iron Body. Get the same type of ability, Ability Fusion. Super Strength and Super Physique are strengthened. Super Strength level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Super Physique level is increased, current level, Alpha level. Update of X-Gene Superpowers, Alpha, Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Super Self-Healing, Beta, Flash, Bounce, Rock Body, Ion Shock Wave, Mind Isolation, Mind Charm, Delta, Energy Absorption, Telekinesis, Super 5 Senses, Beast Intuition, Bone Claws. Looking at the information panel in front of him, Richard frowned slightly. He was not surprised that the steel body was fused and strengthened, which raised the super strength and super physique to the alpha level, but he did not expect that after the system gave the X-Gene superpowers a detailed classification, the 4 abilities of energy absorption, telekinesis, super 5 senses, and bone claws would be classified as delta. He used to think that these 4 abilities were all beta. After all, the original owners of these abilities were not ordinary people. Energy absorption, telekinesis, and super 5 senses were plundered from mutant agents. As for beast intuition and bone claws, they were plundered from the clones of saber-toothed tigers. In addition, while plundering this ability, these 2 abilities were strengthened 3 times. However, even so, in the system's evaluation system, Beast Instinct and Bone Claws are still Delta-level superpowers. Looking at the X-Gene superpowers after the system's detailed classification, Richard quickly made a decision. In the future, you can't plunder all superpowers. Superpowers of 2 low levels will not be of any use even if you plunder them, such as Bone Claws that have not been upgraded after strengthening 3 times. In addition, if you accidentally plunder low-level abilities such as Toad Tongue, Thorns all over the body, Acid Saliva, etc., even if you don't use them, as long as you see them on the superpower list, it will affect your mood. Chapter 28 Mutant Child. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After closing the information panel, Richard flashed back to the second underground floor. Although the mutant agents of the operations department could not come back for a while, he did not intend to wait for them to come back idly. After flashing back to the second underground floor, he saw the saber-toothed tiger wrestling with the clone. Although they were both human, the saber-toothed tiger and the clone were wrestling together like 2 primitive beasts. You give me a claw, I give you a claw. You cut my throat, I will pierce your eyes. Neither the saber-toothed tiger nor his clone used any particularly sophisticated fighting skills. Compared with the clone, the saber-toothed tiger has far more combat experience and combat skills than the clone, but unfortunately, these 2 advantages could not allow him to quickly kill the clone in front of him. Not only that, he finally realized how annoying the enemy with super self-healing ability is. Do you need my help? After seeing the clone in front of saber-toothed tiger unharmed, but his clothes became tattered and bloody, Richard said to saber-toothed tiger. No, I can handle it myself, Saber-toothed Tiger quickly replied. Then you can slowly solve it yourself, I'll go to the third underground floor to take a look. After saying that, without waiting for Saber-toothed Tiger to answer, Richard used Flash to come to the third underground floor. Although Saber-toothed Tiger's informant did not provide information about the third underground floor, he just said that there might be some very scary things on the third underground floor, but he can now determine what is on the third underground floor, Sentinel robot. The very scary thing in the mouth of Saber-toothed Tiger's informant is the Sentinel robot. This means that the third underground floor is most likely the hangar, maintenance area, monitoring room, etc. of the Sentinel robot. Richard was not wrong. As soon as he flashed to the third underground floor, the first thing that appeared in front of him was the maintenance area of the Sentinel robot. In the huge maintenance area, there are all kinds of tools and spare parts for the Sentinel robot. In addition, there are several mutant children imprisoned in the maintenance area, to be precise. They are mutant children imprisoned in metal cages like experimental mice. After seeing these mutant children, Richard, who had no good impression of the Mutant Affairs Department, hated it even more. Although mutants have superpowers that ordinary people do not have, mutants are human beings anyway. In addition, judging from the state of these mutant children and the panic expressions on their faces, they have all experienced some inhuman treatment. If nothing unexpected happens, these mutant children are sent down from the laboratory on the second floor underground. As for why these mutant children are not sent to the mutant prison, but to the Sentinel robot maintenance area on the third floor underground, the reason is not difficult to guess. These mutant children should all have good superpowers. They were sent here so that the Sentinel robots can copy their superpowers. After seeing these mutant children with panic on their faces, Richard went straight to the metal cages where they were imprisoned. Then, the authentic knife in his hand was swung out like lightning. Chi 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 chi. The sharp authentic knife easily cut off the door lock of the metal cage. Come out, it's okay. Richard said to the mutant children. The cage door lock had been cut off, and the mutant children only needed to push gently to leave the cage. But after hearing Richard's words, not only did they not come out of the cage, but they retreated to the innermost part of the cage with fear on their faces, curled up their bodies, and looked at him tremblingly. Although I don't know what these mutant children have experienced, from their current actions, they are all afraid to leave the cage, or, they all have extremely serious psychological shadows, and instinctively resist leaving the cage. After seeing this scene, Richard hated the Mutant Affairs Department even more. He didn't think he was a good person, but he had his own bottom line. Apart from anything else, he couldn't do all kinds of horrible human experiments on mutant children. Not only that, he would not kill people everywhere like a perverted killer just because he wanted to plunder more superpowers. Looking at these mutant children with scared expressions on their faces, Richard took out the disposable mobile phone he had prepared in advance from the system space. The so-called disposable mobile phone refers to a non-contract or contract-free short-term service bundled model that can be used after recharging, and does not require any registration or contract signing. In the United States, this kind of disposable mobile phone is very common and can be purchased in supermarkets. It is not expensive and is deeply loved by illegal persons and criminals. In order to facilitate tonight's action, he and Clarice bought several disposable mobile phones when they were shopping for ingredients in the supermarket. Taking out the disposable mobile phone, Richard dialed Clarice's number. Soon, the call was connected. I am now on the third floor underground. I found several mutant children with serious psychological shadows. You open a space door and take them away, Richard said to Clarice. Okay. Clarice replied immediately. A few seconds later, an irregular elliptical space door appeared near Richard. As soon as the space gate was formed, Clarice walked out of the space gate and came to Richard. These little guys are a little afraid of me and don't want to come out. Richard pointed at the mutant child in the cage and said to Clarice. Yeah, leave it to me. Clarice nodded, came to one of the metal cages, and said to the mutant child inside. Come out, we won't hurt you, we'll take you away from here. After saying that, Clarice raised her white jade-like right hand and stretched it out to the mutant child inside. Perhaps it was because her tone was gentle, or it could be because she was very beautiful and a woman. After hearing her words, the mutant child curled up in the corner of the cage, hesitated for only 2 or 3 seconds, then held Clarice's right hand and climbed out of the cage, with the first one. The next few were very simple. Without much effort, Clarice coaxed all the mutant children out of the cage. Under Richard's gaze, Clarice took these mutant children through the space gate and returned to the roof of the previous building. When the space door was closed, Richard took the authentic knife and left the maintenance area. After walking around the third underground floor, he did not meet anyone except those mutant children. Not only that, he also found that many things on the third underground floor had been destroyed. To be precise, they had just been destroyed. Not long ago, it was obvious that before he arrived, the staff on the third underground floor not only evacuated in advance, but also destroyed those important data and instruments that could not be taken away. The reason why Richard knew this was because he saw the monitoring screen of the staff evacuating and destroying things in the monitoring room on the third underground floor. They ran away decisively. Richard complained in his heart. Judging from the monitoring screen, the evacuated staff were not mutants. In addition, judging from their actions when they evacuated, they should have had various evacuation plans early on, and they evacuated in an orderly and unhurried manner. Chapter 29, Shocked Professor X. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although no staff were found on the third underground floor, Richard did not intend to leave without doing anything. Big flame. Without any hesitation, he cast a large flame, summoned a blazing orange-red flame, and began to set fire to the 3 underground floors. Soon, various areas on the 3 underground floors were enveloped in raging fires. Under the blazing flames, various precision instruments and equipment were destroyed, and the entire 3 underground floors quickly turned into a sea of fire. After taking a look at the results of his arson, Richard used flash and returned to the second underground floor, where he saw the saber-toothed tiger and the clones still fighting each other, with neither victory nor defeat. With a helpless sigh, Richard raised the authentic sword in his hand and swung it at the clone casually. Itsanshin. A crescent-shaped sword energy that was purple on the outside and white on the inside flew towards the clone lightning, passing through the clone's waist like cutting off a cucumber, splitting the clone into 2. Hurry up and get it done. I've set a fire down there, and the smoke will come up soon. Richard said to the saber-toothed tiger. If he hadn't set fire to the third underground floor, he wouldn't have minded the saber-toothed tiger continuing to struggle with the clones, but not now. Thick smoke and flames from the third underground floor had begun to spread toward the second underground floor along the ventilation ducts and elevator shafts. If saber-toothed tiger continues to love and kill the clones, both of them will be in a sea of fire. He didn't care if the clones ended up in the fire, but he didn't want to see the saber-toothed tiger trapped in the sea of fire. Upon hearing Richard's words, the saber-toothed tiger immediately came to the clone's upper body without any hesitation and grabbed the opponent's neck. Then, with sudden force, his hands pulled off the clone's head. Richard originally thought that after the saber-toothed tiger killed the clone, he would throw away the clone's head. Turns out, he was overthinking. After tearing off the clone's head, saber-toothed tiger did not throw away the head in his hand, but came to him with the clone's head. Take me to the square above. The saber-toothed tiger held up the clone's head and said to Richard. Good. Although he didn't know what the saber-toothed tiger was going to do, Richard didn't ask any more questions and directly grabbed the saber-toothed tiger's shoulder. Flash. With a thought, he and the saber-toothed tiger disappeared in an instant, returning from the second underground floor to the square in front of the office building. Arriving at the square, the saber-toothed tiger immediately came to the flagpole in the square without saying a word and put down the American flag on the flagpole. He tied the clone's head to the American flag, and then raised the clone's head and the American flag to the top of the flagpole. Forehead. Richard originally thought that the saber-toothed tiger wanted to keep the clone's head as evidence. Unexpectedly, saber-toothed tiger actually wanted to tie the clone's head to the American flag to express his dissatisfaction. When the saber-toothed tiger was admiring his masterpiece with a satisfied expression, Richard came to him and grabbed his shoulders again. Flash. He used flash again and led saber-toothed tiger out of the square and back to the roof of the building where Clarice was. As soon as he arrived at the top of the building, saber-toothed tiger saw the mutant children who had just been rescued, and looked at Clarice with a puzzled look on his face. They were locked in a cage on the 3rd floor underground. Richard asked me to take them out. Clarice said immediately. After hearing Clarice's answer, saber-toothed tiger immediately looked at Richard and asked, "What are you going to do with these little guys?" "What to do with them will be discussed later. You take them back first." I have some personal matters to deal with. Richard replied. You won't go back with us? Clarice asked immediately. I'll go back later. Okay, don't waste time, you guys go first. After saying that, Richard used Flash and returned to the square in front of the office building. After seeing him return to the square after using Flash, Saber-Toothed Tiger and Clarice frowned at the same time. In their opinion, tonight's goal has been perfectly achieved, and there is no need to stay. Little did they know that for Richard, tonight's goal was far from being achieved. He needs to kill 12 mutant agents to complete the mission Son of the Devil, Part 2, and get Virgil's Phantom Sword. Now, he has only killed Benjamin, and there is still a long way to go before completing the mission. Although the system did not require him to complete the task tonight was the best time to complete the task. More importantly, he didn't want to make another trip. If something can be done tonight, there is no need to put it off until the next day. This is just like the code words used by Internet article authors. Many Internet article writers can clearly finish coding today's content tomorrow, but they just don't do it. They have to wait until 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening to start the full attendance defense battle. What makes people even more speechless is that the authors of these online articles have not yet saved their manuscripts, so they insist on experiencing the speed of life and death at the last moment of every day. Although the system gave him 3 days to complete the task, Richard did not intend to wait until the end of the task time to complete the task that could have been completed early in the morning. Procrastination is not a good habit. Flashing back to the square of the office building, Richard did not enter the office building to hunt down ordinary staff, nor did he plan to set fire to the office building. Instead, he came to the wreckage of the Sentinel robot. He simply placed and organized the remains of the Sentinel robot, and made himself a throne composed of the remains of the Sentinel robot. Afterwards, he inserted the authentic sword next to the throne and sat down with the golden sword, waiting for the arrival of other mutant agents. While the mutant agents from the operations department rushed to the Los Angeles branch, major television stations in Los Angeles also received news that the Los Angeles branch was under attack. Although there was no preparation, these TV stations immediately dispatched news helicopters and reporters to the scene. At the same time, news of the attack on the Los Angeles branch also began to circulate on the internet. Not long after, news helicopters from major television stations arrived over the Los Angeles branch. The searchlights and cameras on the news helicopter were all focused on Richard, who was sitting on the wreckage of the Sentinel robot. Not only did Richard not drive away these news helicopters, but he also hoped that the reporters on these news helicopters could broadcast the next battle live. Although this would make him a most wanted criminal by the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs, he didn't care. In other words, on the first day he traveled to this world, he was mentally prepared that he would be famous. Unless he plans to be the dog of the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs. Otherwise, with his character, it is only a matter of time before he goes to war with the US government and the Department of Mutant Affairs. You have to be famous early. If it comes too late, happiness won't be that great. These are the original words of a well-known female writer. Richard agrees with this. The scene of his big sword sitting on the wreckage of the Sentinel robot was quickly broadcast live. Less than a minute after the scene was live broadcast, many viewers and netizens recognized him as the hero in the video that was taken down a few days ago. Why is it him again? Didn't the Department of Mutant Affairs issue a Class A warrant for his arrest? He probably came to attack the Los Angeles branch after seeing the wanted poster. Have you noticed that his hair is much longer than it was a few days ago? Although he doesn't look as good as me, I must say that his hairstyle and hair color are very handsome. Silver hair is indeed handsome. I have decided that I will dye my hair silver tomorrow. Where are the mutant agents in the branch? Are they all dead? Why didn't anyone come out to arrest him? What I like most is watching the fight between domestic dogs and wild dogs. Are those the remains of the Sentinel robots he's sitting on? Probably not. The Sentry robot is the natural enemy of mutants. No mutant can defeat the Sentry robot. You can't even catch Magneto, but you still have the nerve to call him the natural enemy of mutants. Where are all the mutant agents in the Los Angeles branch? Is the Department of Mutant Affairs just a waste of our taxpayers' money? that even before the mutant agents from the operations department arrived, netizens had already started a heated discussion. Although the topics discussed are different, most netizens are not optimistic about Richard and feel that he is seeking his own death. There are also many mutants among the viewers and netizens watching the live broadcast. But these mutants did not participate in the discussion, but looked at Richard. Sitting on the remains of the sentry robot with complicated expressions, once upon a time, they had also imagined this kind of scene. But it's a pity that they don't have the strength or the courage of Richard, so they can only imagine it in their minds. Although the live broadcasts are now carried out by news helicopters from local TV stations in Los Angeles, the live broadcasts are not limited to Los Angeles. Viewers from other states can also watch the live broadcasts of these TV stations. As for the live broadcast online, let alone the New York, Westchester School for Mutants principal's office, Cyclops, who was wearing a jacket and jeans, knocked on the door of the office. Without waiting for Professor X's answer, he opened the door and walked in. "Professor, the Los Angeles branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs has been attacked." After saying that, Cyclops picked up the TV remote control and tuned to a channel on a TV station in Los Angeles. Like other mutant viewers, Professor X, who did not recognize the remains of the Sentinel robot at first, only frowned slightly, but soon, it was discovered that what Richard was sitting on was the remains of the Sentinel robot, and a shocked expression appeared on Professor X's face. Even among the X-Men, not everyone can deal with the Sentinel robots alone, not to mention dealing with several at the same time. As the founder of the X-Men and the Mutant School, he knows the strength of the Sentinel robots better than most mutants. Not only that, he also knew to which generation the US officials had developed the Sentinel robot. While Professor X showed a shocked expression, Cyclops' voice sounded. "His name is Richard Wesley, and he is the only son of Los Angeles billionaire Roy Wesley. Roy Wesley founded a mutant organization called Crimson Manor near Los Angeles. A week ago, Roy Wesley was confirmed to be an unregistered illegal mutant and captured by agents from the Los Angeles division. A few days later, the Los Angeles branch sent 3 agents and a special team to capture Richard and other mutants in the Crimson Manor. In Santa Ana, the agents and special forces members of the Los Angeles branch were jointly killed by Richard and Victor, the saber-toothed tiger. The scene was filmed by restaurant patrons on their mobile phones and uploaded online. The uploaded videos quickly caused a stir, and although the websites quickly removed the videos, many people still saved the videos. On the same day, the Los Angeles branch issued a Class A warrant for Richard. P.S. Today's follow-up reading will determine whether you can advance to the second round. Please follow up, collect, recommend and vote. Chapter 30 The Hunt begins. Please read. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Class A wanted order. After hearing what Cyclops said, Professor X immediately frowned. The Los Angeles branch issued a Class A wanted order a few days ago. Why didn't they notify us immediately? According to the agreement, after the Class A wanted order is issued, they should contact us as soon as possible and seek our opinions. Professor X asked Cyclops. Although he failed to prevent the issuance of the Mutant Restriction Act, he did not do nothing as rumored. The Department of Mutant Affairs and the X-Men have a non-disclosure agreement. The content of the agreement is not complicated, with only a few items. One of them is that after the Department of Mutant Affairs issues a Class A wanted order, it must notify the X-Men immediately and ask the X-Men if they want to join in the arrest. If the X-Men join in the arrest, the captured mutants will be handed over to the X-Men first, and the X-Men will confirm whether it is necessary to send them to a mutant prison. If the wanted mutant has the possibility to change his ways, it is up to the X-Men to convince him to change his ways. The reason why Professor X added this content to the agreement is very simple: limit the power of the Ministry of Mutant Affairs, and preserve the strength of the mutant community. A-level wanted orders are second only to S-level wanted orders. Regardless of the reason why the wanted mutant is listed on the A-level wanted order, one thing can be explained, that is, the wanted mutant is the elite of the mutant community. To put it bluntly, ordinary mutants are not even qualified to be on the A-level wanted list. Cyclops sighed helplessly and said slowly. Not only the Los Angeles branch, but also other branches of the Department of Mutant Affairs are not fulfilling their obligations in the agreement. Only after they are discovered by us, they will reluctantly send the information on the wanted target. Although Professor X has the strongest telepathic ability, he sometimes still overestimates human nature. No organization likes to have other people meddling in its internal affairs. The X-Men don't like US officials to interfere in internal affairs, and the Department of Mutant Affairs also doesn't like the X-Men to interfere in arrest missions, even if there is an agreement. If you don't like it, you just don't like it. How long has this been going on? Professor X asked with a frown. This has been the case from the time the agreement was signed to now. Cyclops replied quickly, has it always been like this? Professor X's expression became more and more ugly. Why haven't you told me all this time? I can go to the Minister of Mutant Affairs and ask him to strictly follow the agreement. Professor X continued. Professor, it's not that we don't want to, but... Cyclops stopped and did not say the next words. But what? Scott, I don't want to use telepathy on you. Professor X frowned and said, hearing Professor X's words, Cyclops clenched his fists unconsciously. After looking at Professor X for a few seconds, he said. Professor, do you know how the outside world evaluates us after the Mutant Restriction Act was implemented? People now say that the X-Men are the dogs of the officialdom and will only beg for mercy from the officialdom and deal with their own people. Even the school is now said to be a dog training base, responsible for training mutants into official dogs. Normally, Cyclops would never tell Professor X this, although he didn't quite understand why Professor X didn't strongly oppose the implementation of the Mutant Restriction Act. He chose to believe Professor X. However, as time passed, he began to doubt his original choice. He does not deny that Professor X is a good person who has dedicated his life and everything to the mutant community. But the fact now is that after the implementation of the Mutant Restriction Act, the discrimination faced by mutants has not only not decreased, but has become more serious. In other words, the emergence of the Mutant Restriction Act has turned all mutants into inferior beings. Scott, do you also think that I made a mistake back then and should not have agreed to the implementation of the bill? Professor X looked at Cyclops and asked seriously. I don't know, I really don't know. All I know now is that the discrimination faced by mutants has become more serious, the reputation of the X-Men has deteriorated, and there are fewer and fewer students in the school. I also know that after seeing the video of Richard killing the agents and Special Forces members of the Los Angeles branch and the live broadcast now, I don't think he is heinous, and I even feel a little sympathetic to him. Before coming to the office, I briefly checked the information about their father and son in the database. The father and son did nothing bad except not registering in accordance with the law. Not only that, Roy Wesley is also a well-known philanthropist in Los Angeles. He has done a lot of good things in Los Angeles, established charity funds to help disadvantaged groups, and is often enthusiastic about charity and donations. Even after he established the Crimson Manor, he did not let the people of the Crimson Manor do any extreme and vicious things. He just silently took the mutants in need of help into the manor and took care of them. Although his son Richard Wesley is a second-generation rich man, he is not as debauched as other second-generation rich people. He doesn't even have a sports car to his name, only an ordinary Ford car. What's the result? Roy Wesley was arrested, Richard Wesley was wanted, and all assets in the names of their father and son were seized and frozen. Are the two fathers and sons involved in drug trafficking? Or in human trafficking? Or are they secretly supporting terrorists? No, nothing. They just want to live an ordinary life and help people in need. To be honest, if it were me, Richard Wesley, I would probably go even further than him now. Professor X did not expect that Cyclops, who had always been so steady, would become so excited now. In addition, he also heard from Cyclops's words his strong dissatisfaction with the Mutant Restriction Act, in other words, strong dissatisfaction with the status quo. After a few seconds of silence, Professor X said to Cyclops. Go and notify Sheen, Logan, and Ororo. You guys will go to Los Angeles immediately and bring back Richard and Victor. If people from the Ministry of Mutant Affairs stop you, tell them that this is my decision, Charles Xavier. If they are dissatisfied, let their minister come to me personally. Cyclops was stunned for a moment and looked at Professor X with surprise. He thought that after he said such words, Professor X would tell him some great truths, for example, the necessity of mutant registration, the existence of the Department of Mutant Affairs is to allow mutants and humans to coexist peacefully, etc. Unexpectedly, Professor, Cyclops didn't know what to say for a moment. If you have anything to say, let's talk about it after we bring him back. Professor X looked at Cyclops with a kind face, as if he didn't care about what he just said. Okay, I'm going to inform Chin and the others now. Cyclops nodded towards Professor X, turned and left the office, the headquarters of the Brotherhood of Mutants, Magneto's office. This little guy is quite interesting. Judging from his appearance, he won't leave unless he kills everyone tonight. Riven, take a few people there and ask them if they are interested in joining the Brotherhood of Mutants. Magneto watched the live broadcast on TV and said to Mystique sitting next to him. After hearing Magneto's words, Mystique immediately replied, he will not join the Brotherhood of Mutants. Have you met him before? Magneto looked at Mystique in confusion. I think I've met him before. His name is Richard Wesley, and he is the son of Roy Wesley. Mystique said slowly, Roy Wesley. Magneto recalled it for a moment, his original expression appeared on his face, and he said with a smile. It's better to take someone there. 2 months ago, he wouldn't have thought that he would awaken his superpowers, let alone that he would transform from a rich second generation with no worries about food and drink to a Class A wanted criminal. Also, please tell him something for me. As long as he joins the Brotherhood of Mutants, I will help him get back the property of the Wesley family with interest. Mystique stood up and said slowly, I can take someone there, but I can't guarantee that I can bring him back. A mutant who can destroy 3 sentry robots cannot be forcibly brought back unless you do it yourself. After saying that, without waiting for Magneto to answer, Mystique left the office, Los Angeles branch. What Richard doesn't know now is that both Professor X and Magneto plan to send people to take him away. However, even if he knew, he wouldn't particularly care. He only cares about one thing now, and that is whether there will be 11 mutant agents coming back. He still needs to kill 11 mutant agents to complete the system's tasks. He doesn't want to have to go around looking for and hunting mutant agents in the next 2 days. When the entire Los Angeles branch was surrounded by Los Angeles police and special forces, he finally saw the mutant agents who came back. After seeing these mutant agents, he immediately started counting them. 1, 2, 3, 12, 13, 14. 14 mutant agents. After seeing that there were 14 mutant agents who had returned, Richard showed a satisfied expression. If it were other mutants, after seeing these 14 mutant agents, they might be nervous and even start to consider escaping. But he won't, because for him, the arrival of these 14 mutant agents not only means that he can get Virgil's phantom sword tonight, but it also means that he can plunder good superpowers in the future. Under the gaze of everyone, he stood up from the throne made of the remains of the sentry robot, and pulled out the authentic sword stuck on the ground. After dancing a knife flower casually, he muttered silently in his heart. The hunt begins.